Not because it was hot, but because I suddenly realized my husband wanted me dead. That morning started like any other quiet morning in Maplewood, Ohio, soft sunlight through the curtains, the hum of the coffee machine, and the smell of roasted beans filling the kitchen. I had been married to Ethan Walker for 6 years. 6 years of what I thought was a normal life. He was calm, soft-spoken, and respected in the neighborhood. People called him the perfect husband. But that morning, his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Do you like coffee?" Ethan asked casually, placing a mug in front of me. The question was strange. Ethan knew I loved coffee. I drank it every morning. Yet his voice sounded forced, almost rehearsed. I looked at the mug. The steam curled upward, carrying a rich aroma. Nothing looked unusual. Still, something felt wrong. I smiled and replied softly, "Honey, your father drank this coffee." The color drained from Ethan's face. The mug slipped from his hands and shattered on the floor. And then, without a word, he ran. "Let me take you back. My name is Laura Walker. I am 32 years old. A high school literature teacher. I believe in observing people. Words matter, but silence speaks louder." That morning, Ethan woke up earlier than usual. He didn't kiss my forehead like he always did. Instead, he went straight to the kitchen. From the bedroom, I heard cupboards opening, then closing. I heard him wash a mug twice. That caught my attention. Twice? Why wash a clean mug twice? When I entered the kitchen, Ethan was standing stiffly near the counter. He flinched when he saw me. "You're up early," I said. He forced a smile. "Thought I'd make you coffee." That alone wasn't suspicious. But his hands were shaking. Ethan never shook. Not even when his mother died. Not even during storms or accidents. And then I saw it. A small brown glass bottle, half hidden behind the sugar jar. It didn't belong there. I pretended not to notice. "Smells good," I said, pulling out a chair. Ethan nodded too quickly. "Drink it while it's hot." I wrapped my fingers around the mug. My instincts screamed. I remembered something my mother once told me. When someone insists too much, they are hiding fear. Ethan kept staring at the mug. Not at me. That's when I noticed something else. The coffee surface looked oily. Barely visible. But enough. My heart began pounding. I didn't drink it. That memory struck me like lightning. I turned back, lifted the mug slightly, and said the words that changed everything. "Honey, your father drank this coffee." For a split second, Ethan froze. Then panic exploded across his face. "What?" he shouted. His eyes darted toward the staircase. His breathing turned uneven. "That's impossible," he whispered. He stopped himself. And that was his mistake. The mug slipped from his hands. Crash. Coffee spilled across the tiles. Ethan didn't look at me. He didn't look at the broken mug. He looked at the door. And ran. I stood there, frozen, listening to the front door slam. My entire body went cold. Because innocent men don't run. "Laura." The voice came from the stairs. Richard Walker was holding the railing, his face pale, sweat pouring down his temples. "I don't feel well." My blood turned to ice. "Richard?" I rushed to him. "Sit down." He staggered 2 steps, then collapsed. I screamed. The paramedics arrived within minutes. One of them sniffed the spilled coffee. "Do you know what was in this?" he asked. "No," I whispered. "But my husband made it." The paramedic exchanged a look with his partner. They rushed Richard into the ambulance. As the siren wailed, one thought echoed in my mind. Ethan didn't run because I drank the coffee. He ran because his father did. At the hospital, doctors worked frantically. Hours passed. Finally, a doctor approached me. "Mrs. Walker," he said gravely, "your father-in-law was poisoned." My knees gave way. "What kind of poison?" I asked. He hesitated. "A slow-acting industrial toxin. Not something accidental." The world spun. Industrial toxin. Ethan worked at a chemical distribution warehouse. My phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. "Ethan." I didn't mean it to go this far. Tears burned my eyes. "This far?" I typed back with shaking hands. "Me? What did you mean to do?" the message stayed unread. That night, I returned home alone. The house felt empty, cold. I searched the kitchen. The brown bottle was gone. But something else wasn't. Behind the trash can, taped to the wall, was a handwritten note. My heart nearly stopped when I read it. Once Richard is gone, everything will be ours. Signed, E. I sat on the kitchen floor, holding the note. My husband had planned this. But a terrifying question formed in my mind. Was the coffee meant for me or his father? Because if Richard hadn't drunk it, I would have. As I sat there in silence, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered. A calm male voice said, "Mrs. Walker, if you want to know why your husband ran, you need to stop trusting the past." The line went dead. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about poison. It was about inheritance. And I was standing in the middle of a deadly family secret. The house felt different the moment I stepped inside. Not empty, watching. As if the walls had ears. As if every shadow knew something I didn't. And maybe they did. The unknown caller's words kept echoing in my mind. Stop trusting the past. What did that even mean? I locked the front door, leaned against it, and took a deep breath. My hands were still shaking. My husband had vanished. My father-in-law was lying in a hospital bed fighting poison in his veins. And someone out there knew more than they were telling me. I walked slowly into the living room. That's when I noticed it. A drawer, slightly open. Richard's drawer. My father-in-law always appeared simple, quiet, retired. A man who watched the news and watered plants. But I had never opened his private drawer before. I hesitated. Then I pulled it open. Inside were documents, neatly stacked. Old envelopes. A leather folder. And something that made my breath catch. A second will. Not the one Ethan had shown me years ago. This one was newer. And my name was on it. I sat down, heart racing, and read every word. Richard Walker had changed his will 3 months ago. He left. The house. His savings. And the old factory land. Not to Ethan. But to me. With one condition. In case of my sudden death, I request a full investigation. I do not trust my son. My stomach turned. He knew. Richard had known something was coming. Suddenly, memories surfaced. 3 months ago, Richard had started asking strange questions. Laura, he once asked casually, if someone wanted to kill me, how would they do it? I laughed nervously back then. Why would anyone want to harm you? He didn't smile. I'm not afraid of strangers, he said. I'm afraid of family. I thought it was old age paranoia. I was wrong. As I stood up, the floor creaked differently near the bookshelf. I frowned. I pressed my foot down again. Hollow. My heart began pounding. I moved the bookshelf. Behind it was a small door. I had lived in this house for 6 years. And I had never seen it. The room smelled of dust and metal. Inside were old files, photographs, a locked metal box, and on the wall, newspaper clippings. All about a factory accident from 1998. A chemical leak. 5 workers dead. One supervisor named Richard Walker. But the headline read, "Supervisor cleared of negligence. Case closed." Yet Richard had circled the word cleared in red ink. And written beside it, lie. My chest tightened. Ethan had grown up poor. Bitter. Always angry about his childhood. Dad ruined my life, he once told me. He chose his job over his family. What if Ethan believed something else? What if he believed his father deserved to die? I tried the lock. It was already open. Inside were bank records, offshore accounts, and one letter addressed to me. My hands trembled as I opened it. Laura, if you are reading this, it means I was right to be afraid. Ethan believes my death will free him. He doesn't know the full truth. The poison he used is not for me. It was meant for you. Because you are the only witness left. My blood froze. Witness to what? The newspaper clippings weren't complete. Some names were blacked out. Except one. Michael Harris. My father's name. My heart nearly stopped. My father had died in that factory accident. I stumbled backward. This wasn't random. This wasn't about inheritance. This was about revenge. Ethan didn't just want money. He wanted silence. I remembered my father coming home exhausted, smelling of chemicals. I'll quit soon, he had promised. Just one more month. He never made it. The company blamed faulty equipment. Richard was cleared. But the truth? The truth had been buried. And Ethan had grown up believing his father was innocent. Or maybe he knew otherwise. Suddenly, bang, the front door slammed shut. I screamed. Footsteps echoed. Someone was inside the house. Laura, Ethan's voice called softly. We need to talk. My heart pounded violently. He sounded calm. Too calm. I stepped out of the secret room, holding Richard's letter tightly. Ethan stood in the hallway. His eyes were red. His face tired. You shouldn't be here, I said. He smiled sadly. I knew you'd find the room. My blood ran cold. You poisoned the coffee, I said. He nodded slowly. Yes. For me or for your father? He hesitated. Both, he admitted. My legs weakened. You killed my father, I whispered. His face twisted. No, he snapped. Your father killed himself by trusting mine. My father tried to stop the leak, Ethan continued. He warned them. He begged them. I shook my head. That's not what the records say. The records are lies, Ethan shouted. Silence filled the room. Then he said something that shattered me. Richard was going to confess. He changed the will, Ethan said bitterly. He wanted to give everything to you. To ease his guilt. I held up the letter. He said the poison was meant for me. Ethan looked away. You weren't supposed to know. Suddenly, my phone rang. Same unknown number. I answered without looking away from Ethan. The voice said calmly, Mrs. Walker, leave the house now. He is not alone. My heart slammed into my chest. What do you mean? I whispered. But the line went dead. I looked at Ethan. Then I heard it. A soft click. The sound of a gun being loaded, somewhere behind me. The click of the gun echoed louder than a scream. My breath caught in my throat. Slowly, very slowly, I raised my hands. Behind me, someone laughed softly. Not Ethan. Someone older. Colder. Put the letter down, Laura, the man said calmly. No sudden movements. I turned my head just enough to see him. Gray hair. Sharp eyes. Clean suit. I recognized him immediately. Thomas Reed. Richard's old business partner. The man who disappeared after the factory accident. The man officially listed as dead. My heart nearly stopped. You're supposed to be dead, I whispered. Thomas smiled. Paperwork can kill anyone. Ethan didn't look surprised. That terrified me more than the gun. You promised no guns, Ethan said quietly. Thomas shrugged. Plans change. I realized then. Ethan was not the mastermind. He was the pawn. Thomas gestured toward the couch. Sit, he ordered. I sat. My legs barely held me. Your father was a good man, Thomas said casually. Too honest. I clenched my fists. He found out the safety reports were falsified, Thomas continued. Richard wanted to confess. I didn't. Ethan stared at the floor. I did everything you told me, Ethan said. You said this would end it. Thomas laughed. Oh, Ethan. Nothing ever ends. The poison wasn't meant to kill, Thomas said. Not immediately. I looked at Ethan sharply. You tested it on your father, I said. Ethan flinched. I didn't know it would hurt him that badly, he whispered. Thomas smiled cruelly. It needed a human trial. My stomach churned. Thomas leaned closer to me. You, he said. You were the problem. Why? I asked. Because Richard trusted you, he replied. And because your father's death connects you to the truth. My heart pounded violently. You wanted me gone so the past stays buried. Thomas nodded. Exactly. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Thomas frowned. Answer it. On speaker. I did. A familiar voice spoke. Laura, listen carefully. It was Detective Mark Benson, the officer who handled my father's old case. I'm outside your house, he said. And we finally reopened the file. Thomas's smile vanished. You lied, Ethan whispered to Thomas. Thomas raised the gun. Quiet. Ethan stood suddenly. No. You said she wouldn't get hurt. Thomas turned. That was the moment. The sound exploded through the house. Thomas screamed. The gun flew from his hand. Ethan had tackled him. They crashed into the table. I ran. Sirens wailed outside. Doors burst open. Police. Drop it. Thomas tried to run. He didn't make it. Hours later, I sat wrapped in a blanket. Detective Benson sat across from me. "We have everything now," he said. "Records. Confessions. Witnesses." Ethan sat in handcuffs nearby. He wouldn't look at me. As they led him away, he finally spoke. "I loved you," he said quietly. "But I was raised by lies." I didn't respond. Some love is poisoned beyond saving. 2 days later, Richard woke up. He cried when he saw me. "I tried to fix it," he said. "I waited too long." "You told the truth in the end," I replied. That mattered. Thomas Reed was charged with multiple murders, conspiracy, corporate cover-up. Ethan received a reduced sentence for cooperation. The factory case was reopened. My father's name was cleared. As I stood outside the courthouse, sunlight warming my face, I realized something powerful. The poison didn't destroy me. The truth healed me. I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. Because the dead don't stay silent forever. And the truth still had one final voice left. 3 days after Thomas Reed's arrest, the town of Maplewood gathered at Greenwood Cemetery. But the funeral wasn't for Ethan. It wasn't for Richard. And it wasn't for me. It was for the truth that had been buried for 26 years. My father, Michael Harris, was finally being honored. For the first time, his name wasn't followed by negligence or worker error. It was followed by whistleblower. I stood by the grave, holding white lilies, when Detective Benson approached me. "There's something you need to see," he said quietly. At the police station, Benson slid a cassette recorder across the table. "This was hidden in Thomas Reed's old storage unit," he said. "It's dated 1 week before the factory accident." My breath hitched. I pressed play. Static. Then a voice. My father's voice. "If you're hearing this, it means I didn't make it out. They know I reported the leak. Richard Walker tried to help me. Thomas Reed threatened us both. If anything happens, it wasn't an accident." I broke down. 26 years of silence shattered in seconds. That evening, I visited Richard at the hospital. He looked smaller now. Older. "I should have gone public," he whispered. I chose fear. "But you saved the recording," I said. He nodded. "I hid it. I waited for the right time." "You waited too long," I said softly. He closed his eyes. "I know." That night, I received a letter. From Ethan. I didn't want to read it. But I did. "Laura, I grew up hearing only one story. That my father was a coward and your father was reckless. Thomas shaped my anger. I let it become hate. I'm sorry I tried to end your life. I'm sorry I couldn't stop myself sooner." Tears fell onto the page. Some apologies come too late. The courtroom was packed. Media everywhere. The case was being called the poisoned coffee conspiracy. Thomas Reed pleaded not guilty. Richard Walker testified. So did I. I told them everything. The coffee. The bottle. The note. The gun. I didn't look at Ethan. I didn't need to. Then the prosecution played the tape. My father's voice filled the courtroom. The room went silent. Even Thomas Reed looked shaken. That was the moment the dead spoke. And everyone listened. The jury didn't take long. Thomas Reed was found guilty on all counts. Life in prison. No parole. The judge looked at him and said, "You buried truth. Today, truth buries you." Weeks later, I returned to the house. Not as a wife. Not as a victim. But as the rightful owner. Richard moved into assisted care. Before leaving, he handed me the keys. "Turn it into something honest," he said. I nodded. "I will." As I cleaned the attic, I found one last envelope. Addressed to both Richard and Michael. Inside was a blueprint. A safety redesign. My father's handwriting. The solution that could have saved everyone. I smiled through tears. I stood by the window that night, watching the moon rise. The poison was gone. The lies were exposed. The dead had spoken. But my story wasn't finished. Surviving doesn't mean the fear disappears. It means you learn how to breathe with it. And I was learning. One slow breath at a time. The first night says everything. I slept on the couch. Not because I wanted to, but because my body refused to go upstairs. Every corner of that house carried echoes. Ethan's footsteps. Richard's silence. The coffee mug shattering on the floor. Healing doesn't come with forgiveness. It comes with honesty. One morning, as I brushed my teeth, I finally looked at myself. Really looked. I saw someone stronger than the woman who once trusted blindly. Someone who had survived betrayal, poison, and truth. I whispered to my reflection, "You're still here." And for the first time, I believed it. People in Maplewood changed how they looked at me. Some with sympathy. Some with curiosity. Some with guilt for believing the lies. At school, my students stopped seeing me as just a teacher. They saw me as proof that courage doesn't roar. Sometimes it whispers, "Stay alive." I visited Richard one last time. He held my hand. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said. "I'm asking you to live." "I am," I replied. Tears rolled down his cheeks. That was enough. Ethan accepted his plea deal. 10 years. Before he was taken away, he asked for one thing. To tell the truth, he said. He gave authorities every name, every document, every hidden account. Some people redeem themselves only after losing everything. I didn't sell the house. I transformed it. The old living room became an office. The secret room became an archive. I founded the Michael Harris Safety Foundation to protect whistleblowers, to fund safety research, to ensure no worker is ever silenced again. Pain became purpose. One night, I dreamed of the coffee cup again. This time, I didn't drink it. I poured it out. I woke up smiling. Spring came. I planted a tree in the backyard. A symbol of life continuing. The roots deep. The branches free. I stood beneath that tree and realized the poison tried to end me. The truth set me free. But one chapter remained. The first time I drank coffee again, my hands were steady. That's how I knew I had won. Not in court. Not through revenge. But through peace. The cafe on Oak Street smelled of cinnamon and warmth. Soft music played in the background. Morning light spilled through the windows like forgiveness. I wrapped my hands around the cup. Coffee. Once, it was fear in liquid form. Now, it was just coffee again. I took a sip. Nothing happened. And everything changed. The Michael Harris Safety Foundation had grown beyond Maplewood. Factories began changing policies. Whistleblowers started coming forward. Anonymous letters arrived, stories that had waited decades to be told. Each one reminded me why I survived. Not by accident, but by purpose. Richard passed away quietly in his sleep. Before he died, he left one final message for me. Thank you for telling the truth when I was afraid. I attended his funeral alone. Not with anger. Not with blame. With understanding. I received one last letter from Ethan. I didn't rush to open it. When I did, it read, "I finally understand. Poison doesn't only kill bodies. It kills generations. You stopped it." I folded the letter and let it go. Some chapters don't need rereading. The old Walker house became a community center. The kitchen, where it all began, was turned into a meeting room. I kept one thing. The broken mug. Not as a reminder of fear, but as proof that I noticed. Standing in that room one evening, I understood something simple and powerful. Evil survives in silence. Truth survives in courage. I didn't survive because I was lucky. I survived because I listened. If you ever feel something is wrong, if someone insists too much, if fear whispers instead of screams, listen. That whisper might save your life. The coffee never poisoned me. The lies almost did. But truth healed everything. I walked forward unafraid. Free. If this story opened your eyes, don't keep it to yourself. Like if you believe intuition can save lives. Share this story with someone who needs strength. Follow for more powerful stories of courage, truth, and survival. Because sometimes, the smallest choice, like not taking a sip, can change your entire life.